Well, putting this off and putting this off, and now it's time to rip off the Band-Aid and talk about it. Shohei Ohtani tore his UCL yesterday, and he will not be pitching again for the rest of the season. Some might argue he's not pitching in an Angels uniform ever again. As far as surgery is concerned, he is currently looking to get a second opinion, but it is possible that Tommy John surgery is in his future, which will certainly delay him getting back on the mound. But as far as this information is concerned from a betting perspective, if you believe that anybody else is suddenly an American League MVP contention, then you are nuts. Because Ohtani has lapped the field many times over, and he still may be hitting. In fact, in the doubleheader yesterday, Shohei Ohtani did hit in Game 2 after he learned of his injury, and he still had a double, and he's still good out there. So the fact that Ohtani could have very well won the MVP as a hitter, and by the way, his pitching's been pretty good, he's lapped the field, he's won this award, case closed, don't waste your money.
I don't understand why. I thought they were going to kind of shut him down. I mean, he kept talking about his arm soreness. He's had little lingering injuries here and there. And I think it's just unfortunate, like, that this stuff was already out there, that he was, had some soreness, was dealing with something, and now a tear and could need Tommy John surgery or something. Like, and he's going to be a free agent in 10 weeks. I just think they mismanaged him and should have shut him down to protect his future. I think it was stupid to continue to have him pitch.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I mean, it's a tough break for him, no doubt about it.
It is.
The Angels, they've been out of contention for some time, but the fact that they were so aggressive at the trade deadline to have some semblance of hope that they could do this, it feels like Ohtani had to be part of that mix as well. And because he's so competitive and because he does so many things, Ohtani was, more than willing to oblige this, where he is going to continue to pitch. But now his arm was the thing that sort of ended this whole deal. But that he still got out there and hit, and that he even hit a home run in Game 1 when things were starting to deteriorate. Yeah.
The fact that he wanted to keep playing, I think it says a lot about him. Like, great guy. That's awesome. But also, I think he needs to be thinking about his future. As you said, they're not in contention. Like, they have nothing to play for. I think he needs to take a step back, clear his head, and think about his future at this point. In a couple months, he's going to be a free agent. So I would be thinking more about my health and how I'm going to, extend my career and not just keep pushing myself, even though I'm a bit banged up and look like a hero. At this point, there's no reason to be doing that. They're not winning a World Series. I think this Blue Jays-Orioles series is interesting in terms of the playoffs. You got Barrios on the mound for the Jays against Kyle Gibson for the Orioles. Barrios, a 3.39 ERA. His expected ERA is 4.51. xFIP 4.15, and he's really good on the road. 3.62 road ERA. Versus Kyle Gibson, he's been solid. 4.97 ERA, obviously quite a bit worse than Barrios. 4.54 expected ERAs. So their expected ERAs are very similar, and their xFIPs are almost the same. 4.15 for Barrios and 4.11 for Kyle Gibson. Kyle Gibson actually pitches much worse at home, a 5.34 home ERA. So I'm going to back Barrios and the Blue Jays first 5 run line at plus money.
I think, honestly, one of my favorite bets, and this will probably be a bet I make every single week, the Detroit Lions team total over. That offense is going to be spectacular this year. I mean, that team is going to be putting up 30 points, I believe, regularly. They start against the Kansas City Chiefs team that historically has started the season a little bit slow. The defense hasn't been very good that early. So I like a Lions team total over. I think that's a really nice play. And then talking about the NFC South again, you've got the Panthers and the Falcons here. I'm not sure why the Panthers are getting the hook here on the 3.5, but that's a really nice number there. So 2 spots already that have stuck out to me. I'm going to wait a little bit on the Lions team total over, but I think I'm going to have some Panthers plus 3.5 at some point today.
First off, you've got the Chiefs. They had 496 points last year. They're at 5-1, but we should point out they have one of the toughest schedules this season. Followed by the Eagles at 6-1. They had 477 points. You mentioned the Cowboys. They came in third, 467. You can find them at 12-1. 455, the Bills plus 850, another team with a very difficult schedule this year. Then you've got the Lions, Niners, 14-1, followed by the Vikings, 18-1, Bengals plus 850, Seahawks, 19-1, and then the Jags, 20-1. They had the 10th most points last year. So I kind of looked at who scored the most last year, who has an easier or tougher schedule. Where I ended up landing was there are 6 teams from the 18 to 20-1 range where I think there could be some value. So I do like the Eagles. I'm high on the Eagles this year, but you can only get 6-1. And you mentioned when we look at fewest points or least points, whatever you want to call it, there's better value, and I think it's a little easier to predict. You might even be able to bet on a couple there. So I think the Vikings at 18-1, they've got Justin Jefferson. Obviously, Kirk Cousins has a lot to prove. They've got some weapons there. The Seahawks at 19-1, I thought was interesting with their offense. And then the Jags, to me, is one that stood out because they had 404 points last year, which is about 92 points less than the Chiefs, who had the most. But remember, Trevor Lawrence came on later last season. They started off slow. So if he can pick up where he left off, I think they're going to shoot up this list. It makes me want to look towards the Navy side because they like to use the triple option. And even though they do have a new head coach, they are still going to do that, which essentially means even their quarterback is a running back. So for perspective, the midshipmen threw for just, wait for it, 85.8 yards per game last season, 3rd worst in the entire country, Ed. And guess what? They rushed for 241.2 yards per game, which is 4th best in the country. I think we can all agree. You think rain, you think run game, right? This is going to be an advantage for Navy here. You can even get Navy plus 21. There's 20.5s. There's few 21s out there. I actually think Navy can keep this a little bit close. I'm not saying they're going to win the game, but they have proven over the last 10 games that they can keep it close. In the last 10 games, Navy 1-9, but ATS, their record is 4-6. So I will be on Navy plus the points.
And I will be on Notre Dame minus 20.5. When we're talking about Navy, yes, new head coach, new offensive coordinator. And these are folks who are familiar with the Navy system, the triple option, all of those things. But I think anytime you bring in a new head coach, you're putting your own fingerprints on things, right? You want to try and mold your offense to ultimately what your vision, what your philosophy is for your program. And yes, the triple option is absolutely part of it. You cannot abandon it. But it does also suggest that as far as what they've said is they want to pass the ball just a little bit more. And yes, those numbers are anemic. And I think the point of that is if they're going to pass a little bit more, not a lot more, this isn't an air raid offense, but if they're going to pass just a little bit more, then it's going to be with the short game. And my question is, do they try and do that right away in terms of this transformation? Or because of the weather, are they going to let that wait a little bit more and say, okay, given the conditions, we want to be more triple option heavy than we normally are?
Correct.
And sort of make this transformation later on in the season?